This is the JT Podcast, brought to you by Baltimore Jewish Times and its parent company, Mid-Atlantic Media.
Hi, my name is Jillian Diamond, and I'm a staff writer for the Baltimore Jewish Times. I'm here today with Lauren Shaivitz, Executive Director of CHANA, an associated agency dedicated to providing help and resources for abuse survivors in Baltimore's Jewish community. Lauren, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
First of all, I was wondering if you would be able to introduce yourself to our Baltimore Jewish Times readers who might not be familiar with you and your work.
Sure, absolutely. Like you said, my name is Lauren Shaivitz. I am an attorney and a social worker by trade, and have worked in the field of abuse my whole career. So at times I really worked as an attorney, helping victims and survivors obtain protective orders and other sort of legal remedies. And at other times I've worked as a social worker, helping people heal and move forward. And now I am very proud to have been at HANA for 11 years. The first 6 I served as the director of programs, working directly with our clients, and the last 5 as the executive director.
So what first inspired you to work with abuse survivors?
It really started in college. My freshman year of college, somebody asked me if I wanted to go to the YS at WCA, the local YWCA, and get trained to be a rape crisis hotline service provider. And so I went to this 80-hour training, and I was fascinated and quickly began wearing a pager. At that time, we wore pagers every Sunday night throughout college, and would get all different calls throughout those 4 years. People who had just recently survived an incident, and then others who were survivors from trauma years past, but were still suffering. And I really found myself passionate about that work. And so it just continued over the years.
So you have a legal background, right?
Correct.
I was wondering how that translates to your current work in the social work field.
So I've flipped hats a lot over my career. And when you're working with victims and survivors of abuse and trauma, there are a lot of needs, and there are a lot of different angles that that people need in order to heal and to move forward safely. And so I've kind of used both degrees throughout my career. I started my career as an attorney at the House of Ruth, Maryland, and at other times when I was more in the social work space, still had a legal understanding of what a client's journey might look like, and able to kind of process with them and work with them on an emotional level the legal journey they were about to go on.
What do you feel are the most important things that you've learned in your work?
I think I've learned that listening is always the most important thing. You know, when you work with victims and survivors of abuse, people's stories are very similar, and we kind of get used to hearing the same kind of patterns of behavior, but there's nuances to every story, and and everybody chooses their own path as to how they want to work through this. And so really being able to listen to people on a deep level, to be able to understand what they're looking for, what their goals are, and how they want to approach it best, has probably been the most important skill.
So what got you involved with HANA specifically, and what led to you becoming its executive director?
You know, I had worked in almost every domestic violence agency throughout Baltimore over my career, and had never worked in our Jewish community. And when I saw the opportunity to work at HANA, I really had to do some self-exploration about hearing that which I know happens at the same rate in every community, including our own community, whether that was something I really wanted to take on, because I knew I'd be hearing things about people that I knew, or friends of friends, or that kind of thing, because 1 in 4 women means 1 in 4 women, no matter where you are and what community you're working with. But I was quite eager. I was quite eager to be able to give back in the community in which I was raised and grew up. And so it was really an honor to come and work for HANA 11 years ago. And then for 6 years, like I said, I was able to work directly with clients, run some of our programs, work with a tremendous, exceptional staff, team of staff members who are experts in their field and do all their work with compassion and kindness, but a high level of expertise. And then when our executive director of 18 years, Dr. Nancy Aiken, was leaving, it was time. It was time for me to kind of move away from the direct client work and really get into the management of the organization.
So part of what sets HANA apart is that it takes a Jewish-informed approach to helping abuse survivors. So I was curious about what this entails that might be different from how other similar organizations handle it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So at HANA, we consider ourselves a culturally sensitive service provider. And all of our responses are done in a culturally sensitive manner. So we work primarily with the Jewish community, but our work does extend into the larger community. And so the skills that we use in our Jewish community, we know to use in other communities where people may be marginalized or have special cultural needs. In the Jewish community, where we really specialize and focus most of our time and efforts, when we're safety planning with people, this becomes something that we're doing every single day. We're thinking about how do their traditions, their culture, Jewish law impact the choices that they're going to make at any given time. When we're safety planning with people and trying to come up with solutions of what they may do and options they can take if a violent outbreak were to occur, we have to think about Shabbat. Can you pick up the phone and make a phone call? If you make that phone call, can you get in a car? Can you go to a hotel? Can you go to a shelter? If you go to the shelter, are we going to be able to get you kosher food? Have you talked to your rabbi about this beforehand? Let's call your rabbi together and kind of talk this through and work together on how we can make a plan that really meets all of your needs, that you don't have to decide between being safe and your Jewish identity. We can come up with a plan that really incorporates who you are and your Jewish values and traditions and laws to do things in a way that really meets all of your needs. So you don't have to sacrifice safety for religion.
Of course. And in your time working at HANA, how have you seen it have a positive impact on the community?
I think people are talking about it a lot more. I think throughout COVID, domestic violence was discussed in the media very frequently because there was such a large increase in danger and in calls that were coming in nationally. And so I think that our community was able to see that this is a real issue and it happens here too. And the more we can make people aware, the more people learn what warning signs are. They're better able to protect themselves and protect their loved ones. And there's less shame, because people who may find themselves in this type of situation will realize that they're not the only person and that there are resources available to help them.
I think it's safe to say that it's been a pretty difficult past few years for a lot of people, with the COVID-19 pandemic beginning a few years ago and more recently the war in Israel. How does that affect the work that HANA does in the community?
Yeah, thank you. We know that in times of crisis, times of uncertainty, domestic violence spikes. And so we have seen this for the past 4 years or so. First with the pandemic, certainly people being on lockdown, people being isolated and at home with abusive partners. Alcohol consumption increased drastically, which is not a cause for abuse, but it certainly increases danger. Unemployment, all of these things are things that become factors in the level of danger that someone may be experiencing. And so throughout the pandemic, We saw a tremendous increase in calls. It was well over 100% increase. And we're seeing that again now. We're seeing that again now with the war in Israel, that talking about hostages and the media constantly talking about hostages is very triggering for victims and survivors of abuse, because many describe their situations as feeling like hostages in their own home. Talking about sexual assaults, and that who's listening, nobody's believing, who's responding, are there any consequences, really mirrors what a lot of our clients have been through throughout their marriages and relationships. And so they are being triggered and re-traumatized by the news that we're all hearing on a very, very regular basis. And people feel in danger again. They feel like they can't predict where they're safe and how to stay safe. And it's really bringing back old trauma. So we have seen a tremendous impact on our community through COVID and through this crisis in Israel.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for your time today and for being our guest. Our Baltimore Jewish Times readers really appreciate this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course, and thank you everyone for tuning in.